There's a tone in much of today's leadership and consulting culture that sounds confident, polished, and even liberating. But beneath the surface, there's often a quiet insistence that your current state is a problem to be solved. That the person across from you isn't simply there to support you, but to redesign you. Their presence mimics curiosity, the nodding, the thoughtful pauses, the attentive face. But what drives them isn't wonder, it's a preloaded framework. They come not to learn your context, but to fit you into theirs. The questions they ask are often steering mechanisms, subtle nudges towards a system that they've already decided is best. And when the change does happen, it's held up as proof of the method, not as a celebration of something that's uniquely yours. The pressure to perform leadership is hard to name because it hides so well. It borrows the language of clarity, vision, alignment, transformation, and potential. You hear it everywhere now, in boardrooms, coaching sessions, off-site retreats, podcasts, panel talks, and lengthy LinkedIn posts. It feels familiar. It sounds reassuring, but too often it's a script in disguise, a way of sounding insightful without doing the work of insight. Clarity becomes something to sell, not something to earn. And slowly, voice, context, and complexity get streamlined into something clean enough to scale. At first, that streamlining feels like help, but before long, it begins to erase the very texture that made your leadership real. This isn't just a pattern, it's a culture. One that rewards the most polished voice in the room or on the screen. One where charisma often gets mistaken for competence and confidence gets confused with wisdom. Soundbites travel faster than substance, and even those who build careers around this performance quietly struggle to live up to it. But the model endures because it packages progress, and progress is something people are always eager to buy. Not everyone enters leadership spaces with a script to follow or a system to impose. Some come with a different posture, a different pace. There are others, though, who show up differently, who bring tools and frameworks, yes, but who aren't bound by them. They come in listening. Not the performative listening, but the kind that makes room for the mess, the contradiction, and the unknown. They want to understand what animates a leader, what shaped them, what tensions they're carrying, and what kind of future they're trying to build. They're willing to let the process change shape if something truer emerges. The work for them is not about showcasing expertise. It's about honoring what's already there and helping it take deeper root. Meeting someone where they are and caring enough to walk with them towards what is true is more important than imposing a system. This kind of support moves slowly. It begins in care, not as sentiment but as discipline. It involves noticing when something essential starts slipping. It means remembering what mattered at the beginning and holding on to it when the pace picks up and the pressure to perform kicks in. It means asking questions that don't aim to provoke, but to return the conversation to its center. The work is not flashy. It doesn't arrive with a signature style or sound. It shows up as a quiet presence and as someone willing to help hold institutional or organizational memory. The drift between intention and execution is something worth noticing, not to assign blame, but to realign with what mattered at the start. Sometimes the original vision, the purpose that once felt clear, gets buried under urgency or performance. What this work makes possible is a return to that core, not by force, not all at once, but by staying with it long enough to gently unearth what's been lost and help bring it back into view. Support in considered and thoughtful leadership work isn't about fixing anyone. It's about creating space for honesty, for a pause, for choices that aren't performative nods to relevance. The work doesn't produce dependency. It doesn't stroke ego. What it does is create conditions for people to lead from a place that is rooted and real. When clarity begins to return, it rarely stays still. It starts in one conversation, one renewed sense of direction, but it doesn't stop there. It shows up in the way decisions are made, how people speak to each other, what gets prioritized and what gets left behind. It spreads through teams, through culture, sometimes quietly, sometimes decisively. And as it moves, it invites others to remember what they're really here for. This isn't the kind of leadership support that relies on tightly packaged formulas, trademarked systems, or persuasive marketing scripts. It doesn't position growth as a guarantee or performance as a metric for insight. It's not invested in multiplying influence for its own sake or in turning leaders into polished replicas of someone else's model. There's an entire industry built around replication, where the path to success often looks like adopting a voice, a style, or a system that wasn't born from your own story. That world knows how to sound like empowerment, but often it moves too fast to notice what's actually unfolding in the life of a leader. The work I do isn't interested in those shortcuts. It's slower. It listens more than it sells. It's shaped around real lives, real tensions, and the long arc of clarity. What matters most isn't how easily the process scales, but how honestly it helps people return to what matters. That's the work I'm committed to. What I'm part of doesn't move fast or try to go wide. It pays attention to the texture of someone's leadership, the conditions that shaped it, and the quiet questions they may not have had room to ask. It assumes that leadership is not a product to be polished or sold, but a posture that needs to be grounded in something true. This work begins in listening, not just for what's being said, but for what's being lost. It allows room for contradiction, for complexity, for the slow clarification of what matters most. And because of that, it doesn't scale easily. It doesn't rely on tactics that convert strangers into clients or structure every conversation as a funnel. Instead, it requires trust. It grows through real relationships, through long arcs of conversation, and through the mutual courage it takes to name what's actually happening. This kind of work doesn't always look impressive. But for leaders who are tired of noise, who are done performing clarity, and who are ready to recover it, it often comes as a deep exhale. This isn't a service offering with a tidy arc and a guaranteed outcome. It's a commitment to walk alongside someone while they do the slow work of untangling, remembering, and leading from what actually matters. It's about helping someone re-engage with what they care about and making sure that the way they lead lines up with what they actually believe. It's about making room for things to be unfinished without rushing to fix them. And if that's the kind of support you're searching for, if you're trying to protect a vision, resist distraction, and build something that endures, then we should talk. This is the work that I do. This is the path I walk with people. And it's what Fathom It exists to support.